Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. We are very pleased to say that we're getting him set up, but friend of the show, Michael Libby, Insights Advertising, is here. We're going to be breaking down. We talked about the caucus a little bit last week, kind of like our initial thoughts. We had a week to kind of digest the results from Iowa, who won, who lost, whether or not a win or a loss means anything, and it's good to have Michael here to help us break those down. And we're gonna be checking in with him with his candidate Desmond Adams to see where he's at in the early stages of his run for the House seat that's coming up at the end of 2016, and just we're going to have an all-around good discussion, Doc, I think is what you can say.
I agree 100%. One of the things that I said last week that I think New Hampshire is going to prove this week is that even though Ted Cruz won, the results to me show that his campaign overall is in a bit of trouble. If you spend that kind of money in this state, and if you have the Christian conservatives behind you the way he does, yet you only beat Trump by 3 points, I think that shows that there's some problems, especially when you have Rubio close on your heels. Out of New Hampshire, and I can't look it up, the current numbers because our computer is down. One of the things that's interesting is Trump is number one so far for the exit polls, and Kasich is number two, followed by I think it's followed by Rubio, quickly thereafter by Cruz. And you have to stop and you have to think, wow, Kasich took second. What are the odds that it's going to wind up being a contested convention? And so that's what I'm going to propose to our special guest, Michael Libby, or you, Lefty. What do you think? How do you think that's going to pan out? What do you think it's going to be? A contested convention? I
don't know. I don't. Maybe. We'll see. I'm surprised because I'm looking here right now, and they're doing some reporting of what appear to be results already. I didn't realize that the polls had closed so early in New Hampshire. Mike, does that make any sense to you?
After it's almost 8 o'clock.
Yeah, it would be 7:43, I think, out there.
I think that. And I don't know how they do it out in New Hampshire. Sometimes we don't even know how we do it here in Iowa.
Most of the time.
Well, especially with the Democrats involved.
Well, 2 years ago, the Republicans had their adventure as well. So it goes around. So I don't know how they do. I know that Dixon Notch, earlier this morning, the first precinct that voted in, they voted all 5 delegates or all 5 votes to Bernie Sanders, and Donald Trump won as well with 3-2, I think it was. Anyway, but I don't know about what do I know? I'm interested in Iowa and what we're going to be able to do here.
Yeah, that's a good thing,
right?
But I was talking to somebody yesterday who's a pretty smart guy, Charles Goldman, and he's on the other side, like you two guys are, and he seemed to think it's going to be a broker convention as well. And it was really kind of strange because his idea is exactly the same. We both think, and there's a lot of people that think this, that if it goes to convention, Jeb Bush is going to be the person coming out of that.
Oh, I don't know.
Keep in mind, Jeb Bush is still generating money like you wouldn't believe, especially for a guy that hasn't even cracked the top 10 until everybody else drops out.
He's spending like he's generating it too. I guess as far as Iowa is concerned, I mean, I don't know what either. I volunteered to be a delegate for the March 12th, I think, county convention for here next month, and I'm wondering what you guys think about this. I mean, we saw this in 2012, and I think also again in 2008 when Ron Paul on the Republican side stuck around and was able to spin delegates back toward himself, so that the real winner of the Iowa caucus ended up being Ron Paul as opposed to Huckabee or Santorum in 2008 and 2012 respectively. I see something that could be very similar happening to Secretary Hillary Clinton in that the supporters, and at least in my precinct, were very firm both ways. That the Senator Sanders folks stayed on one side of the room, the Clinton folks stayed on the other side of the room, and O'Malley. There were a couple of diehards that refused to commit either way, but there wasn't much movement. And at the end of the night, the Clinton and Sanders split the number of delegates. So, but I am curious. I think that there could be some slippage for Hillary at the county and state conventions. I don't know, Mike, what do you think about that? I think her support is locked down, but I wonder if it's a little more fluid than we think.
I don't know. I think that the people that are energized for both of those campaigns, both the Sanders campaign as well as the Hillary campaign, are equally energized. Mm-hmm. I think demographically they're different, but the individuals that I've spoken with and worked with over the past 6 months here in the Des Moines Metro, they're very passionate about this. And I think as close as what the vote came in at the caucus is that we're going to see a rousing Polk County Convention, district convention, state convention, and on into the national convention, depending on what happens now in Nevada and also South Carolina. It'll be interesting to watch all those things.
When moving into South Carolina, I think the first couple of precincts or folks reporting in New Hampshire have Senator Sanders way ahead of Secretary Clinton. I don't think that's a surprise at this point. We might see that tighten up. We might not. Who knows? Trump being way out in front, I don't think that's been a surprise. And we'll see how he runs with that. But I am curious, just like you said, I'm curious to see how South Carolina shakes out on both sides of this thing, because the one place that Senator Sanders hasn't penetrated as much as maybe he wishes he could or he thought he could early on is with African American and Latino voters, and the African American portion of the Democratic primary in South Carolina is enormous, and so that'll be interesting to see, and also interesting to see how the Clinton campaign spins it coming out of what's probably going to be a pretty big loss in New Hampshire.
Yep. Yeah, because she's been behind virtually since Sanders announced that he was going to run
in New Hampshire.
Well, it's a neighboring, it's a neighboring state.
You bet. So that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that surprises me is the number of moderates that are supporting Trump, with the number of Latinos that are supporting Trump. I think I'm not sure if it's they're tired of business as usual, or if Trump is saying something so significantly different that everybody can get on board with that, or at least a certain segment. But it is interesting to me to look at the numbers for Trump, and it doesn't seem like there is a typical Trump voter. I mean, it's not an aged white male. It's not a young Latino. It's not, a black. And so, and Mike's over here chomping at the bit to say something nasty. So we're going to take a break.
Not me.
But I got, so we're going to take a break. We're going to be back. We're going to do a little bit more analysis of Sanders and why his economic plan isn't going to work, or in general, why, Democratic plans generally don't work. And then we're going to move on to whatever subject that Mike would want to bring up, climate change, or
actually, what I'd like to talk about is our candidate here in the 3rd District. Desmond Adams couldn't make it tonight. He's a little bit under the weather after spending so many days, but I'd like to spend some time on the 3rd District congressional race.
All right. So we'll be back right after this break. We're going to finish up talking about Sanders, and then talk a little bit about Desmond Adams and move on from there. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back right after this break.